In today's video, I'm taking a look at Avatar Legends, the fighting game on the Nintendo Switch 2. And before you even ask, no, Avatar Legends is not on the Switch 2 natively, not yet anyway. I did email Gameplay Group and one of their representatives did tell me that Avatar Legends is going to be coming to the Switch 2 at a later date, but he had no other details, which is unfortunate. Like I said in yesterday's Switch 1 review of Avatar Legends, Xbox players at least got a 24-hour warning that the game was going to be delayed. Switch 2 players didn't get that, but at this point, what we do have on the Nintendo Switch 2 is the original version. And while it may not play that well on the original hardware, is that also the case on the Switch 2 hardware? I got some comments in yesterday's video saying that it does not run well on the Switch 2 either, so I decided to check it out for myself, and I was actually kind of surprised because it's actually not bad. Dare I say it's actually pretty good on the Nintendo Switch 2. In today's video, you're gonna see some before and after, a performance analysis, and some online gameplay so you can see what the game is like online. The launch for Avatar Legends was kind of all over the place. First, the Xbox version gets delayed by over a month, a day before it releases, and then the Nintendo Switch 1 version launches, but it launches in a state almost as bad as Mortal Kombat 1 did. And then the Nintendo Switch 2 version doesn't even launch. I was waiting patiently for this game, and then it just never came out. It was delayed as well, and they somehow forgot to tell us. So I gave in and just bought the Switch 1 version to play on Switch 2, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's just get into it. If you saw my video yesterday, then you know how bad the Switch 1 version runs on the old hardware. So let's do a little side-by-side here of the Zahir fight in arcade mode. This is the Zahir fight on the Switch 1. You can see it has trouble even just starting, but once it gets going, it stays mostly at around 30 frames per second. Special moves do tank the frame rate though. And that's a night and day difference from how the same fight runs when you play it on the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's obviously an unlocked frame rate capped at 60 FPS, and the Switch 2 manages to keep it running pretty smoothly, even avoiding the horrendous start to the fight. As you can see here on the Switch 2, I was able to make it all the way to the end of Korra's arcade mode without any problems. On the Switch 1 hardware, I couldn't get past Zahir, which is the first fight by the way. I couldn't get past that without the game crashing, which I showed you in yesterday's video. Okay, before we get to the online match performance, since I'm actually able to play the game normally on the Switch 2, I decided to check out the story mode, and people said that it's really bad, but I think it's actually kind of charming actually. I like it so far. It runs perfectly fine from what I've seen. Playing the story mode is also how you can unlock Avatar State Aang and Nightmare Korra, but there is a little cheat code to unlocking them instantly, and that's this. Go to the main menu, go down to where it says arcade mode, make sure it's highlighted black, and then push the select button. Then go to local versus, to training mode, and then arcade mode again, in that exact order. Push the select button each time. It's very easy, and if you do it correctly, you're gonna hear a little sound effect. If it doesn't work, then try to get a little rhythm to it. There's a certain way that you gotta do it, but it's not difficult. It only took me 2 tries. The online experience can make or break a fighting game, so it was with some reservations that I decided to jump online and see how it is. I was thinking that it was going to be very bad because, as you know, this is the Switch 1 version, even though I'm running it on Switch 2. And as you saw, the Switch 1 version runs at 30 frames per second, so that means I'm going to be getting matched up with that. Now, I don't know if there's some sort of trick that rollback netcode uses to get the two to work together without completely crashing the game. Maybe there is. What you're seeing here is an online match that I had against an Azula player who is on the Switch 1. I know he's on the Switch 1 because the match took a while to load. That's generally how you know that you're playing against someone who is on the old Switch hardware, because the Switch 2 would have loaded it a lot faster. So the experience for me is not bad. It's still around 60 frames per second, but the experience for my opponent is still going to be at 30 frames per second, which which means he's going to be at a massive disadvantage because he's just not seeing everything on screen that I'm seeing. When I fight Switch 2 players, it's a very smooth experience. Even in high ping, the netcode runs super good. I heard that there was a lot of delay on the PlayStation 5 version during the beta. I don't feel that here. To me, it feels for the most part the same as when I was playing it on Steam, and this isn't even the fully realized Switch 2 version. That's not even out yet, and it runs really good. So, final thoughts. When it comes to the Switch 1 hardware, should you buy this game to play it on the old Switch? My advice is wait for updates because there are a lot of crashes. The day 1 update fixed some problems like the models for Avatar State Aang and Nightmare Korra, which have been corrected, but the performance problems are still here and they're still very bad. The game crashes a lot and things take a long time to load. You know, I don't expect that load times are going to change very much, but I do think that they can get this running at 60 frames per second with some aggressive resolution scaling and some other optimizations. It's very doable in my opinion. Even on PC, the game is missing basic optimizations like being able to play at lower than 1080p if you would like. You can't do that on PC, and that's a very basic feature. So I think it's really just a case of maybe Paramount rushed the game out to get it out on time with the movie. There was clearly some stuff that was missing, but I don't think this is like Mortal Kombat 1 where it's going to be pretty much impossible to get the Switch 1 version to run on par with the others. This is a 2D fighting game without all the 3D extras that even games like Dragon Ball FighterZ and Guilty Gear Strive had. This is a pure 2D fighting game, so the old Switch can handle it. The team just needs time. If you're thinking of buying this to play it on the Nintendo Switch 2, then I can easily recommend it for you. It runs very good offline, online feels pretty good, and I've gone up against a lot of different people already. It's a pretty good experience on the Switch 2, but I am gonna triple dip when it finally releases properly on the Switch 2 because I want that deluxe edition. That's gonna be it for today's video. I'm SwitchPlayed, done.